Hi, my name is LeAnne Howe. I'm a citizen of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, and I am delighted to be here and talk about the Choctaw Gift to the Irish, 1847, and to be in beautiful Strokestown, Ireland. This film explores the history and artistic legacy of the gift. This film also features a musical performance of Singing Still by Duran Negrifa and myself. Singing Still is a libretto about the 1847 gift. It's a call and response song.
I'm Padraig Kirwan from Goldsmiths, University of London, and I'm delighted to be here in Strokestown House in County Roscommon to launch the Sharing Lands project, which will examine and think about the deep history and legacy between the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma and the people of Ireland.
Honouring Choctaw and Cherokee Irish Famine Aid explores the artistic legacies and bonds of friendship between the Choctaw and Irish nations that were inspired by the memory of their contribution to famine relief in 1847. It also considers the relatively scant archival record and historical newspaper accounts that recorded Choctaw and Cherokee contributions to Irish famine relief. Arkansas Intelligencer, 20th of March, 1847, Cherokee donation. Relief meeting. A meeting for the relief of the famishing poor of Ireland was held in the chapel at Fort Gibson, Cherokee Nation, on the 13th inst. Lieutenant Colonel Loomis, on being appointed to the chair, made a few pertinent remarks relative to the extraordinary distress in Ireland and the object of the meeting, and requested a gentleman present to read some newspaper accounts of the famine. Several selections were read, after which the persons present contributed $103.30, which sum was increased by a collection after service on Sunday the 14th to $130. We understand the money has already been forwarded to the Mayor of New York, who is one of the committee to receive and forward money and food to Ireland. Our military friends have taken the lead in this good work. The bravest hearts melt at human distress. Arkansas Intelligencer, 3rd of April, 1847. The Choctaws to their white brethren of Ireland. A meeting for the relief of the starving poor of Ireland was held at the Choctaw Agency on the 23rd ult. Major William Armstrong was called to the chair, and J.B. Luce was appointed secretary. A circular of the Memphis Committee was read by Major Armstrong, after which the meeting contributed $170. All subscribed: agents, missionaries, traders, and Indians, a considerable portion of which fund was made up by the latter, the poor Indian sending his mite to the poor Irish. The amount raised at this meeting was forwarded to Charles Loveland, Esquire, chairman of the Memphis Committee, to be added to the other amounts raised by that committee for the relief of the starving poor of Ireland. What an agreeable reflection it must give to the Christian and philanthropist to witness this evidence of civilization and Christian spirit existing among our red neighbours. They are repaying the Christian world a consideration for bringing them out of benighted ignorance and heathen barbarism, not only by contributing a few dollars, but by affording evidence that the labours of the Christian missionary have not been in vain. They send their testimony to afflicted Ireland. The content of these newspaper articles has to be seen in the context of 1847, what was happening in Ireland and what was happening in America. In Ireland, we know this was really the culmination of 2 years of food shortages, leading to what was called Black 47, when there was mass emigration, disease, death, dislocation within Ireland. But what's really interesting is that news of the second failure of the potato crop in the end of 1846 had led to a massive international fundraising effort. And it was truly remarkable in its scope and its intensity. People from literally throughout the world gave to Ireland, from Calcutta in India to Moscow in Russia to Buenos Aires in South America. But the largest amount of donations came from North America. And North America, as we know, had very significant bonds with the Irish people through decades of emigration. But what's perhaps even more remarkable is that people who themselves had no connection with Ireland, who themselves were impoverished and marginalised, came to the rescue of the Irish people. And it's unlikely that any of these people who gave had ever been to Ireland or would ever go to Ireland. But something about what was happening in Ireland resonated with them, and so they gave money and gave very generously. Amongst those who gave, some of the most remarkable donations came from people who we now call Native Americans. At the time they were called Indians. And these were people who had been, many of them, forcibly removed from their land. Most famously, the so-called 5 civilized tribes who'd been forcibly removed from their land in the 1830s during what was called the Trail of Tears. And this was a journey of thousands of miles, which took these so-called tribes from the rich lands of Mississippi to the fairly barren lands of Arkansas, also called Indian Territory. And 2 of those tribes were the Cherokees and the Choctaws. And early in 1847, they were told by their agents, officials acting on behalf of the American government, of what was happening in Ireland. They also had their own agency because many of them could read and had their own newspaper, most famously the Cherokee Advocate. But what is, again, incredible is that these people who themselves were so impoverished decided they want to help their brethren in Ireland. So we do have some archival evidence of the donations, not many, but mostly newspaper reports on both sides of the Atlantic. And what it seems from those reports was that the Choctaw Nation came together and they decided they wanted to contribute. The contribution came also from their agents, from the traders who were living with them, alongside them on what was called Fort Smith. And they sent one donation, we think of around $10. But the donation that got so much attention is the second, much larger donation, which is variously recorded as being $170 or sometimes $710. We don't know, but whatever it was, in the context of what these people had, it was extremely generous. And this donation was sent to a major relief committee in New York, which was actually headed by a Dutchman who himself had no connection with Ireland, but his secretary was an Irishman who had been born in Ireland. And that donation, along with many hundreds of others, which came from people in America, was sent to the Society of Friends, the Quakers in Ireland. And for the most part, but not exclusively, the Quakers used these donations to finance soup kitchens, so to give people the all-important food they needed in the spring and summer of 1847. Again, we know from some newspaper accounts, very much inspired by what the Choctaws had done. The Cherokees had a similar meeting, and they also decided to send money both to Ireland and to Scotland. And this is interesting. The chief of the Cherokees in 1847 was Chief John Ross, who himself had Scottish ancestry, and the potato had failed in Scotland as well. Not as severely as in Ireland, but there was certainly some distress in the Highlands of Scotland. And so they raised money. Again, a number of donations. We don't know the precise amount. We know it in total came to over $200. And that money was sent both to people in New York, in Memphis, and in Philadelphia, and ultimately found its way to Ireland. What's remarkable is the compassion of people who themselves have suffered. And during the Trail of Tears, Chief John Ross had led his people from the Mississippi, and his wife was one of the victims of that awful journey. She had died en route. So while the initial reporting comes from newspapers in America, what's interesting is that some Irish newspapers and some newspapers in London also referred to the donations. And they referred to them, they were full of praise, but they used racialized language. They talked about our red brethren, the children of the forest. Despite all these newspaper accounts, both in Ireland and in America, only one Native American is named in the archival record, and that is Chief Ross. The other people remain invisible and lost to history.
I'm fully aware that my story isn't necessarily the normal for a small town kid from rural Oklahoma. So I feel very proud to represent my little town and my little community. My name is Claire Green Young. I'm from Wright City, Oklahoma, and I am Choctaw. I was selected as the Choctaw Ireland Scholarship recipient, left family and community early to kind of represent the tribe in this capacity. And so I was in the process of beginning my master's in museum studies at the time. And I was doing that at an Irish university, but I was still trying to focus in on and narrow in on the kind of research and work that I wanted to be doing with Native communities and with my home community. I think it was probably my third day in Ireland. I was in full traditional dress, all of my regalia at this moment. An Irish man approached me and he asked, "Can you tell me about your dress? You know, I'm Choctaw, so this is our traditional dress." And he said, "Oh, I know exactly who you are. Can I just give you a hug from my ancestors to yours to say thank you for all you've done?" It was a really beautiful time and a really reassuring moment for me to hear from a complete stranger that this connection was something that meant so much to him, and it made me feel like this was right time, right place.
It was the first day trip that my co-scholarship and I did together. And we went out, we took just a 15-minute train outside of the city to Middleton, and we got to be present together and check out the Kindred Spirits monument that they have there. And it's absolutely stunning. You know, like I said, I'm a museum studies girl, and that includes anything art related. So just seeing that sculpture in person, the amount of detail that is etched into every feather there is just so beautiful, and I think really represents the individual and unique experiences of Choctaw and Irish people.
The piece in Ireland is, say, more on the native side because it's got the feathers in the shape of a basket, which is a cool design. I mean, it's very striking. But I thought, well, that's in Ireland. Why don't we focus more on the Irish motifs on our side? Do that nod. So you can see there's the Capitol building. The actual location might change. This was just the initial site. It could be further to the east, though. But I wanted to do more of a Celtic specific design. So this is a design that you would see. So I didn't come up with this per se, but one of the parameters was, you know, Christian charity. And so I wanted the Trinity and then the giving heart, because we're talking about gifts and from the heart. So all of that Celtic knotwork, there's no beginning and end. So that's where the eternal comes from.
My name's LeAnne Howe. I'm here at the Strokestown Park, the library of the house. I'm here to talk a little bit about the Choctaw Nation gift to the Irish in 1847. I'm an enrolled citizen of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, and I was born and raised there. I first heard about the Choctaws giving money to the Irish for famine relief from my mother, Christine Billy Pointer. She said that the Choctaws wept when they heard about the terrible famine in Ireland. So they took up a collection in 1847 at Scullyville, a gathering place in Indian Territory. They collected as much money as they could and sent it. People ask me today, why did the Choctaws help the people of Ireland, a people they'd never even met? One reason, I think, is that starving is still an anathema to Choctaws, and for good reasons. In 1831, Choctaws nearly starved to death on the Trail of Tears thanks to the Andrew Jackson government and his appetite for native lands. President Andrew Jackson the son of Irish immigrants then, would ensure that whites would indeed have more land and potentially better lives by vanquishing American Indians and, of course, Choctaw people from their eastern homelands. You know, it wouldn't be so bad, but Andrew Jackson called on Southeastern Indians and Choctaws to give food and aid to fight the War of 1812 between Great Britain and the United States. Choctaws had responded with food and warriors, and as a reward for our help, Jackson forced all Choctaw people to walk west, giving up their cornfields, potato patches, beans, and tomato gardens, and even our sacred Naniwaya, our mother mound. Imaa. Irene go, Irene go. The Choctaws have a concept, the word ikikowa, and it means a sharing. It means working to help support other people together. Imaa, Choctaws must give and give and give. And Americans took and took and took. Consider the terms of the Dancing Rabbit Treaty, which called for Choctaws to cede 11 million acres to the foreign government of America in exchange for 15 million acres in Indian territory. Sounds like a fair exchange, except there was one problem. There's no water in the new Indian territory. Later in the same decade, all other southeastern tribes would follow the Choctaws on their own trail of tears. My ancestors were a part of that removal from Mississippi. When they arrived in Indian territory, they settled on land around Taney Hill, just outside of McAllister, now in Oklahoma. Today, I'm one of 223,000 plus enrolled members of the Choctaw Nation. We survived, and in some ways I can say we're even thriving. So only about 16, 17 years after our own removal did the Choctaw people take up a collection to send to the Irish for famine relief. That story resonates still with the Choctaw people in Oklahoma. We still understand what that was like. Listen, listen, listen. Can you hear it? From the land of it becomes a chorus. This is about the family that's being removed and has to leave our homelands. So this poem is called Intek, Sister, as she helps brother pack. Our leaving will be sung by every president, every Supreme Court justice, ever hang around the fort lawyer, every cavalry officer, every merchant, every Wall Street nymph, every thief among thieves, every hazardous waste CEO, every medical waste CEO, every stockholder of the wasted new lands, every rat that shimmied off the ships from Spain, Italy, France, Alsace, Germany, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, every pox that crawled off English blankets onto our hands. Our homelands sing a heart song of sorrow. And sing, and sing, and sing. She is singing still. This is Ishki, mother, looks homeward. They moved into our log cabin yesterday. Yelping like young puppies at play, they tore down the center pole of our chief's dance ground, the one with the gar carved atop. Burned it for firewood. Joyous barking, but we could hear the gar rolling in the flames close to the surface, as if he were still in a chafalaya. Gar, he moves slowly except when striking at prey. Now he soars high on a draft of air, carried on wings of ash, heading west. Isa halali hatoko, iksa ilya ishashki. Isa halali hatoko, iksa ilya ishashki. Because you are holding on to me, I am not dead yet. I am not dead yet.